to our podcast on design thinking. My name is Christoph Ebert. I'm the Managing Director of Vector Consulting Services. And with this podcast, I'm going to explain you in a nutshell what is design thinking, how it helps us to frame our thinking. So design thinking in essence also means that we have a new approach to the design, to the problem-solving approach. And design thinking can be seen as a discipline of requirements engineering, but is of course also problem-solving and an innovation technique. So the approach of design thinking is that we see design thinking as an agile method. It's a flexible method to interactive, iterative problem solving. It consists of several steps. The steps are portrayed here, which in a nutshell mean that we have to first get an understanding of the problem and the needs. For this part, it is similar to requirements engineering. This is also why it is often used in the elicitation of requirements. When we have understood problem and needs, then we can also start to see what could be potential solutions. Solutions which have been used somewhere else is what we call benchmarking. Solutions which could be drivers for analogies. That means we look for something which is similar yet different and fits to the current problem at hand. Or we could also start to find solutions which we try out. We call this a prototype. In any case, the solution in most steps would not be already the final approach. It would be iterative. That means we find a solution, we test it, and we validate, we get more user feedback, and after a while we realize it could be improved. And then we do the same cycle again. That means also that the methods which we approach would not be straightforward, but in this iterative approach we also reframe the problem, as we call it. Reframing means we look to the problem from a different perspective. You know that from school. If you got stuck in a difficult exercise, your teacher might have woken you up and saying, look at it from a different perspective, from a different angle. And suddenly, oops, there's a solution. Sometimes we say, if you want to build a bridge, you should not count the people who swim the river today. What it means is we cannot think linearly. Design thinking gives us a way to spread our scope. And this can be nicely seen in this diamond model, which we often use in design thinking. That is, we start in a question, that is, what is the solution to this challenge? For instance, how can I reframe, how can I broaden, how can I restart my business in the time when we are in post-corona, in a situation where we will not anymore be able to directly interact as frequent as we used to. So it means maybe we want to move more into online services from a direct service. Maybe a question would be, we want to broaden business and we have to think in terms of what could boost our sales. Or very specifically, we have a software which we want to extend to a different platform, maybe a tool which we have built for Windows, want to use for Linux. We try to find out what could be the different approaches to make this evolution as easy as possible. This is what we call the diverging. We go from a certain starting point into a broader space where we look what is the problem at hand. And we try also to identify what are the real needs, not just to find a problem and an answer, but rather maybe the problem is only a step in a series of challenges of our customer. Maybe the customer has in fact a different need. I recall a situation where a customer would have told me, you know, we need this kind of solution in an IT system. And I asked a couple of times, this is what we call the 5W. That means we repeat the question, why do we need it? Why do you have this specific perception of your needs? What do you really want to achieve? At the end of the day, after the 5 times why, we always come to the answer, in the end, the customer wants to make money. It's very simple. So this 5 why means nothing else than we continuously reiterate the problem. This is what means that we first diverge. Then we have a sufficiently big problem space, we can converge. And we converge into one or a few single solutions. These solutions could mean that we now start to think in terms of how can we test these solutions? Are they good enough? Do they really solve the problems? Can we derive from a solution a next solution? For instance, we have created a certain algorithm which solves the problem at hand, but maybe it's not yet perfect, maybe it's too time consuming, too much performance overhead. Often we have this kind of situation in our cybersecurity and functional safety situations where we have a problem, we find an algorithm, find a solution, we build a system, yet we still have to see what could be attack modes. An attack mode is typically the result of a divergence. That means we have to broaden the view into what would an attacker do. It's not sufficient to simply say, well, here is the answer. We have to see what could be done, which is not our use case. What could be a misuse case? What could be an alternative use case? With this solution, we can again diverge into other solutions. This is then what we call the solution space, which we evaluate. It's the ID creation. From a single starting point where we know that this is the need and we have one prototype solution, we can now identify several prototype solutions. And of course, after the tests, we have to converge again. The worst would be to stay somewhere here and say, we have a lot of different possibilities, but we don't know exactly which one is the best. That's not good engineering. At the end of the day, our two diamonds here have to converge into a product, into a release. This release finally is what we deliver. From here onwards we can of course evolve, but maybe it's not good enough. Maybe we think in terms of next release we have to do a few things better. That's why this path on the upper side of the two diamonds can also be repeated. We can go in a cycle if you are not happy. We can go in a full cycle if we think, well, here's a solution, but I'm not anymore sure that this solution really solves the initial problem. There's also a challenge in requirements engineering. We should typically not give to the customer what he asks, we should give him what he needs. But if we just give him what he needs, he might say, but I asked for something different. That's basically the difference between an engineer and a lawyer. The engineer tries to solve the problem. The lawyer tries maybe to create new problems. So that means we have to identify what would be really a good merge between the need as it was articulated and the need as it exists. This is the big perspective of design thinking, unlike other techniques. This is the way to go, and that means also it will not stop, but we will have a product. We can continue in a new release, but we can also learn from it, which is a typical agile approach that we try to learn from what has worked in the past and what we might have still to evolve. And from this learning we can also scale. We can scale the product to other solution spaces. We can scale the product, for instance, to other markets. And this is then a continuum which continuously improves our product. For more information, we can certainly just say, let us look into more requirements engineering templates, which we offer. We also have in Vector a lot of webinars which are available. And I can also recommend a recent IEEE software which we have created in order to further show how design thinking is really used in practice. So have a look to our resources and stay tuned. We will certainly come back with more podcasts. For now, I wish you good success. Try it out with the design thinking on a small problem, on a small challenge, even maybe just on a personal challenge which you have, which is, how can I solve this problem? Ask the 5 why. Try to find solutions outside the scope, narrow down, test, build variants, and then find the one which you think is the best answer to your needs. Have a good success and stay tuned. Thank you.